Dan Millard, Fred Haynes, Don Wright, Arlene Sheridan, Mo. Anybody else? I don't see anybody else.
Linda is
Linda?
absent.
Absent, okay.
Laura is absent and Claire is absent.
Yep. Okay.
Great.
You want to change the order of anything?
We can approve the minutes really fast, and
Okay.
then we can have
Approve Ms.
Greg.
Stand.
Okay, do I hear a second?
All right, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Great. So the next thing that I would like to do is introduce Greg Williams. And Greg, feel free to come up to the podium or whatever.
And Greg
you
and I
call
met
it.
earlier. We were trying to figure out where
Great.
was everybody. It was a dark hole in here.
Yeah. Sorry.
Once we arrived,
Sorry I was
everybody
late.
I thought, I know it's today.
Red button.
Greg is the director of the network office, which is the office that the county provides IT support for the Link libraries from. And
You're up in
Greg,
Gladstone?
Oak Grove.
Oak
Yes,
Grove.
a little past Gladstone, yeah.
you've been there how long now?
I've been in the office for approximately 2 months now. In this position,
Yes.
about a month and a half. So
Yeah.
still.
But he has a great background of having worked at West Lynn Library for several years. And so he has a superb background for knowing libraries' needs and how we all interact together and how we use the network office as well. So he has a huge advantage coming into this job that other directors have not had. And we already also know that we love him from previously. So he really has it made in the shade. Yeah, it's great. And he's awesome and has a fabulous spreadsheet of all these projects that we're going to start working on, and we already are started working on them. And he's just great. He actually shows up and visits and talks to us about things. We're just so happy. We are so happy. So today, I asked him to come to talk to you guys about the status of ebooks in the library world, because it's rather confusing and a lot more complex than just plugging into Amazon. So, Greg, take it away.
So if I may, I'm going to pass this out. I made up a little cheat sheet.
Good.
Some of the
Excellent.
information I'll be discussing
There,
tonight.
there's a
Okay.
test.
No, not a test. You don't even have to look at it if you don't want to. So
Just,
I'll try to be
just joke.
Thank you.
as living as I possibly can.
Thank you.
Make it unnecessary to read.
Yep.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Will, for the very kind introduction. I appreciate it. So thank you very much for having me. I'm very pleased to be here to talk about ebooks in libraries. I'll add a little bit more about my background. I have served over the past 4 years in various positions on the Oregon Digital Library Consortium, which is the association of libraries that provides ebook service mostly statewide. There are some systems that are not part of ODLC. Most recently, I was chair of that body. My term ended on June 30th, so I'm taking a well-deserved break. Before that, I was vice chair and website liaison, and have worked with our primary vendor, Overdrive, a lot. So I have kind of a good feel for some of the frustrations that libraries have when dealing with ebooks. So I was planning to just kind of describe the process of getting ebooks for library patrons. If at any time you have any questions or want to interrupt me, please feel free to go ahead. That sound good? Okay. As probably many of you have going to get an ebook on your own from Amazon is pretty darn simple. You know, you just go on your device, you say, I want to buy it. Very easy to do. The cost is pretty negligible, and it gets on your device very quickly. Unfortunately, libraries are not in the same position. Libraries have a bunch of hoops that they have to jump through, basically, to get ebooks into patrons' hands. An original version of the presentation, I had called it "Jumping Through Hoops," but I thought that might have been a little too flip. So basically, when we're talking about the library ebook, I like to call it the ecosystem. All the players in there. The 4 biggest entities that we talk about are publishers. They are the ones that actually are creating the content. They're licensing or they're working with authors to produce the books and make them available. Distributors, these are the companies which take content from various publishers and distribute them and sell them make them available for a price to libraries. We'll get into the definition of sale in just a bit. You may have heard of some of the big players in the market. One of them is Overdrive. That's who we use for Library to Go in Clackamas County and throughout the state. They're probably the 800-pound gorilla of the library ebook distributor market. Some of their competitors are 3M has recently gotten it. They have a product called Cloud Library, which I believe Washington County is looking at, and Multnomah County already has.
And we have a demonstration in August.
So they are, but they basically serve the same, they function the same role as Overdrive does. They are securing the right to distribute content from the publishers and providing it to library customers. Then we have a group of people, I like to call them platform owners. These are people who basically control the technology that we have to use to get library ebooks into patrons' hands. One of them is Amazon. Amazon owns the Kindle platform, the Kindle format. If you want to make a book, regardless of whether it's a library book or a consumer ebook, available on a Kindle, you have to work through Amazon. They own the platform. They will say yes or no. And that has caused some very unfortunate circumstances in the recent past and more distant past. And then finally, the libraries. So we're kind of the end user. We are the people who want to get these ebooks. We want to provide them to our library patrons, to provide them the materials they want to read, and in a format that they want to be able to read them in. So those are kind of the cast of characters I like to think about. Questions, comments before I go on?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Now, going right back to when, if I had a device and wanted to put an ebook on there and I buy it, do I get to look at it more than once?
Yes, mostly. Well, so first, the one thing I'll say about that is when we talk about buying an ebook, there is a doctrine in copyright law called the first sale doctrine, and that's basically why libraries can exist today. Is because when you buy a physical book, you own that book, and the courts have decided that you may do whatever you want to with that physical copy of the book. You can lend it, you can resell it, you can give it away, you can toss it in the trash, whatever you want to do. You can read it as many times as you want. Ebooks are much more similar to software. You don't purchase ebooks, you license them. So if you went to your Amazon account, even though all the buttons say buy now and you have purchased this, if you go into your account and look at the terms and conditions that you agreed to when you hooked up your Kindle, it will very specifically say that you are licensing this content, and it will list all the things that you are allowed to do with that content and the things you are not allowed to do with that content. Now, currently, Amazon and most ebook publishers or ebook distributors will let you read it as many times as you want. But there have been cases. About a year ago, there was an edition of, I believe it was 1984 by George Orwell, that there was some, some disagreement between Amazon and the publisher. People who had bought copies of 1984 woke up to discover that it was removed from their Kindle device because the publisher had decided, I no longer want to make this content available, and the licensing agreement that you agreed to when you use your Kindle said that yes, Amazon does have the right to rescind that content at any time. So usually they let you read it as many times as you want for a consumer copy.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this whole thing of licensing, that's probably the biggest hoop that libraries have to jump through and have to deal with, is that the content, we can't buy it. We have to license it. It'd be very nice if the publishers could actually offer us consistent licensing terms, but unfortunately they do not. And I put a little spreadsheet down here, a little grid showing you these are the big five, there are 6 listed, but they're actually now the big 5 publishers. Random House and Penguin actually merged. They're now the same company. And you can see that they offer their ebooks to libraries on very different terms than what you get as a consumer, and on very different terms than each other. So for example, Random House, which is probably one of the bigger library ebook publishers, they will license the content under a perpetual model. It means once we license it, in theory, we get to license it and keep it as long as we want to. The cost of that book is 5 to 10 times the retail cost. So typically, one copy of a Random House library ebook will be between $60 and $90. Whereas if you go to Amazon, it will be maybe $10. Yeah, $6 to $10. So Random House, and that was probably about 3 years ago. They significantly increased their prices. They used to offer libraries pricing that was much more in line with consumer retail pricing. They decided to not do that, and since it is a contractual licensing, relationship, there wasn't a lot we could do about it if we still wanted to have that material available. Other publishers do offer different terms. They are cheaper up front. For example, Penguin, their ebooks that they provide to libraries typically are sold at a retail cost, $15 to $25 per title. However, we only get the license for 1 year. So once a year is up, if we want to keep having that book available to our library patrons, we need to license another copy of it. And that's year after year after year. You can see, excuse me, sorry, my voice is going a little bit. Hachette, they're one of the newer publishers that are working with libraries. Previously, about 2 years ago, many publishers would not even deal with libraries at all. So things have improved a little bit. They offer a similar perpetual license to Random House. We can license it once and we get to keep it. However, their pricing model is in the first year of release, they're going to charge approximately 3 times the retail price. After that, after it goes from being very popular to their backlist, they'll reduce the price a little bit. So, others, such as HarperCollins and Macmillan, they offer licenses based on checkouts. So a HarperCollins title, we can license it, and we get 26 checkouts out of it before we have to purchase another copy. And as Mo will tell you, 26 checkouts in the library world is nothing. I mean, your average book, physical book in the library, probably, I would say, between 100, 150 circs, easy.
Depending on title.
Yeah, right. Depending. So
Yeah.
I'm
You get a J.K. Rowling's out there, it's going to have
Oh,
possible
gosh.
thousands.
right.
Yeah, to
Yes.
yeah.
But there are very few. I mean, only in the case of damage would you ever have to replace a physical book after 26 circulations. And believe me, the library world has tried to let the publishers know that we feel this is a very artificially small checkout allowance, but so far we have not been successful in getting them to change that. And the newest one, this is actually in the past few weeks, Simon & Schuster was the last kind of library ebook holdout. They had some pilot programs in various parts of the country. They have now decided they will license to libraries on a broad basis. They haven't really told us what the pricing is going to be, and we have just learned that in order to make those books available to library patrons, your library website has to offer a buy it now option. And many libraries do not want to do that. We do not want to. It's a philosophical debate. Many libraries feel that we are not in the business of selling books and being the middleman and trying to make a profit off of it. But Simon & Schuster has said, if you would like to offer our wares to your library patrons, you will enable that feature on your website.
They've got the sticky wicket on that because they've got Stephen King's new stuff.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
It's like, you want
They're-
Stephen King's new stuff?
Yep.
That's how you do it.
Yep, exactly. And
Nice.
to go off, as part of the Oregon Digital Library Consortium, we have these debates every week. It's really a tough decision to make. Is, do you get the content out there that patrons really want, and what's the trade-off, and how's that going to work? So those
I have a
are.
question.
I have a question.
On sells to consortium, does that mean Macmillan won't sell to your consortium?
So many libraries are. Some are standalone libraries, they're individual municipal entities, a city library, maybe a county library, and others, such as Link, are grouped together in a consortium or a cooperative. Some publishers have determined that they will not make their wares available to consortia. Now, the definition of consortia is a little fluid at this point, but a very good example is Hachette. So in Library to Go, which is the service that Clackamas County subscribes to, there is the whole group. We call it the ODLC. That's the statewide group, which is comprised of Clackamas County libraries and libraries from all over the state, Washington County, everywhere. Then we have our own Clackamas County group consortium. Statewide, we cannot purchase Hachette titles. So we are prohibited. If we go onto our marketplace site and try to add books to our cart, they won't even appear for our statewide account. So We cannot purchase a Hachette title that we can make available to Clackamas, Washington County, Seaside, everywhere across the state. For our smaller group, Clackamas County, yes, we currently can. They count us as a single entity while they're counting the whole state as a consortium.
Because we have a union catalog or something? Do you think that
It's
helps?
actually because we have, in Overdrive, we have an Advantage account. So the
Okay.
publishers have said
They like
if,
those.
yes, if you have basically a single buying account that is going to the smaller group, we're okay with it at the moment. That may change. One of the other things about dealing with, well, we'll get to aggregator in just a minute. But publishers can also put restrictions on the size of the group that's purchasing their wares. So Oregon started with Overdrive back in 2004, I believe, when they first kind of got into the market. Were we to try to join Overdrive statewide, in this day and age, they would not allow us to join. We exceed the population. Yes.
I have another question.
Oh.
So
about
is that a distinct disadvantage to highly specialized books like theology or technical things or?
We have found when we look at the statistics and the checkout history of items, both statewide and both statewide and countywide. Oh, you want to come up with the question was: does the publishers' policies have any impact on more specialized titles? Correct. Not so much the publishers' decisions. If it's a small press that might not participate in the ebook market, it might be harder for us to get those titles. We do have access to a good number of specialized titles. Sometimes we don't purchase them as frequently as we do others just because they don't circulate as well and we have limited amount of funds. So we kind of...
Well, my question would be that you might have some really high-level technology or theology or math or something that would get very limited circulation, and maybe you might be willing to buy one for all of Clackamas County, but
when Clackamas County does have a person who is looking at the demand, looking at the items that are available for purchase, and if it was determined that yes, there was sufficient demand to get that, and hopefully enough people check it out, hopefully we would be able to get it. There might be some titles that we would not be able to get.
Okay.
And so, I'm understanding this correctly. This works the same way as it does with books in that you're buying licenses for individual copies. So
Correct.
if you say, for whatever reason, J.K. Rowling puts out another Harry Potter book, we know it's going to explode. Instead of purchasing one license and being able to loan out as many as we want, you'd have to buy as many licenses as you'd want to loan out.
Yes, that is correct.
So in a case like in J.K. Rowling, you're going to purchase 10 to 15 copies for Clackamas County alone.
Yes, that is
Unfortunately.
correct. Unfortunately. There are a few, in the audiobook world more commonly, there are some publishers who will make titles available on what they call an unlimited access basis, which is basically you pay a lot more up front, but they will say that as many people want to use it at a single time, that's okay. Ebook publishers have been very reticent to do that. There are some smaller presses which have started to do that. There are a few available in Overdrive, but when you're talking about J.K. Rowling and Stephen
Right.
King and John Grisham and anything on the New York Times
anything
bestseller
that's
list,
huge,
yeah.
it's always going to be huge. It's
Correct.
going to be a licensing situation.
Yes. So yes, if we have, and consortium-wide, statewide, we have set a goal of trying to keep, we call it the holds ratio. It's the number of holds divided by the number of copies to 15 or less, which we'd like it to be much lower. We would love to be able to afford to buy sufficient copies so that everybody could basically get either their first, second, or third choice right away. But economically, it's not feasible at this point. Any other questions before I go on? Okay. So we talked about publishers, distributors. Again, they're the ones who get the content from the publishers and make it available for libraries to give out to their patrons. Distributors, they do provide some value added to their services. They provide the systems that let us budget, that let us do some collection analysis, which let us get information into our catalog so that patrons can discover, what we have available. They give some promotional material. They help us with collection development. They do charge an additional fee for that, and most of the vendors call it an annual maintenance fee. That is above and beyond what we are paying for the books. We are currently statewide renegotiating our contract with Overdrive, and most likely our maintenance fee is going to go up significantly. So that's an issue we're dealing with. Any questions about distributors? Yes.
So then, with the state being at the center of this, where's that money coming from? From the state?
So when I say statewide, I should clarify. The Oregon Digital Library Consortium does not have any official state of Oregon involvement. The state library is not a part of it. It is a voluntary association of libraries. Basically, back in 2004, libraries got together and said, we would very much like to make these downloadable materials available to patrons. We think it will improve service if we can do it on a statewide basis rather than each library system going on their own. So the libraries came together and we formed a group. We have a set of...
Now these publishers are saying you'd be better off as individuals.
That is...
Brilliant.
As negotiations have gone with Overdrive, yes, that is one of the options that they have told us. I try not to let my personal feelings intrude too much. But
is that divide and conquer?
I think there's probably more profit in it for the distributors to have individual library systems going on their own. They do make the point, which there is a point, that if you're serving a smaller number of people rather than a whole statewide, you can focus your efforts a little more. You can target your dollars to your particular patrons rather than trying to create a statewide collection that's going to appeal to everybody. But
well, especially if they've got this maintenance fee thing where it's targeted toward, you're dealing with 5 libraries in a mini consortium, as it were,
Right.
and you can get a better feel for what actually checks out for that limited area, and they can focus on, okay, you're going to want these books, and you can phase these out and whatnot. So
there are some advantages, but I do think Overdrive probably makes more on maintenance fees when they separate people out than they do together. So I don't want to, and I'm not trying to denigrate Overdrive. They've been a very good partner to us, for
and they've,
many years. So
they've done the ebook and the audiobook as well.
Correct. Yes. Distributors, platform owners, and again, I kind of congregate platform owners into the people who are providing various aspects of technology that's required to get the library ebook to the library patron. As we talked about briefly, Amazon is one of the big platform owners. Their Kindle platform. If you want to read something on a Kindle, you have to work with Amazon. Overdrive currently is the library ebook distributor that has an agreement in place with Amazon, so we are fortunate to be able to offer many library books in Kindle format. Sometimes publishers and Amazon do not get along well, and there have been times when publishers have decided, sorry, we will no longer allow our materials to be available on the Kindle platform. And
that just happened with Powell's or something?
yeah.
Hachette.
Yes. So Hachette and
So
Amazon are
Stephen
right now.
Colbert.
It's a very interesting situation. They are having some significant conflict. But previously it was Penguin. Penguin was one of the big holdouts. So they basically said for a while, first they said that they wouldn't make their items available on Kindle. Then they said, okay, we'll make them available on the Kindle platform, but we won't allow wireless downloading. You'll actually have to plug your Kindle into your computer and manually transfer the ebook over to get it on there. That lasted about a year, I think. And then finally they relented and said, okay. They came to some agreement with Amazon and they re-enabled that wireless access so that library patrons could.
Odd. I mean, I don't think it's an odd question, but obviously we're talking about current popular fiction. What about stuff that's fallen out of the copyright stuff? Your
Public domain?
Your public domain stuff.
Yeah, Gutenberg has all that
Yep.
stuff.
Yep. So Overdrive, vendor that we use for ODLC, they do have a section, they call it always available. I think that's their code
Yeah.
word for public domain, which is great to have. It's great that we have it. I think they're basically just going out to Project Gutenberg and downloading the exact same files that are available on the Gutenberg
The interesting
website.
spin on that is I'm in a BookBub now. You've seen BookBub? And now they're repackaging like Sherlock Holmes for like $1.99, you know?
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's public domain over here, but it's $1.99 here.
Right, but it has to do with
Right.
packaging.
Yeah.
I know that Penguin, one of the things with Penguin is their Penguin's Classics series, and you can get all this stuff that's basically public domain, but it's a nice packaging and,
Yeah.
a font and
Well, yeah, they've got some
whatnot.
bells and whistles on it, but
But,
if you're just
uh,
looking to read Sherlock Holmes, I'd go for the free stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it is nice that we can offer that public domain stuff. Circulation-wise, when we've looked at the statistics, it's definitely a minority of the circulations. I think the last time I checked, it was probably around statewide 1,500 to 2,000 per month, whereas the other titles, it's around ebook. Say it's 70 or 80,000 a month the last couple of months. So.
Yeah, obviously a big drop off,
Yeah.
but still stuff that's nice to know it's still floating around
right
out there.
So,
I do wish Overdrive would put a little more effort into,
Yeah.
not just downloading it directly from Project Gutenberg and plopping it up there as is. If they could do some of that value-added stuff, nicer covers, a little bit of editing, but.
so I have a question for Mo. What part of our budget goes towards these ebooks? How much a year?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, did we put in like 5 or 10? I think we put in 10,000, but we didn't spend it all
Yeah.
for the local, because we decided to do this Advantage program together, and yeah, so we just put like I think 10,000 into the pot. I can't quite remember.
I think that's, as I recall, so I can tell you, for the contribution to the statewide collection, Clackamas County this year it was $25,000 approximately. About 3,000 that was maintenance fee, and the rest is going to content. That comes directly from my department, and then the Clackamas County Libraries. It was last year,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, they did all get together and allocate some additional money for a Clackamas-only collection. And at the time, it was the whole pot was $70,000, I think,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly.
Everybody put in a pretty good sized chunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, it allows you to get
Yeah.
those other companies that are holdouts against a major consortium.
It allows that, and then I think probably the biggest use of it is to just, again, get that holds queue down, because
Yeah.
statewide,
Those popular materials.
right, we've got, with the resource constraints that we have, we can kind of hold the line at, for ebooks, a 15-to-1 ratio. If we want to get it so that there's fewer copies, we have told our individual members, there's this Advantage program, you can open up your own account, you can spend additional money to buy additional copies that just go to your patrons.
Right, so we could open up our own account at Oregon City if we wanted to.
It's not ideal. It's not the way I'd like it to work.
Yeah, this
It's-
works out really well because there's somebody, is it still somebody at West Lynn?
Yep.
Who just kind of like pays attention to all the holds list and what the needs are and everything. So it's great because it's like, here's the money, you go take care of, the needs according to our instructions, and it's awesome. So,
Is that a paid staff member?
And then the other platform I'll just mention very quickly, most publishers, especially in the ebook world, are not comfortable letting their materials go out without some form of, it's called digital rights management, some form of technology to prevent you from copying it and sending it to 20 of your friends. So one of the big players in that is Adobe, and every time you go on to Library to Go and download a book in the Adobe EPUB format, it's a 10-cent charge, basically. So 10 cents goes directly to Adobe every time there's an Adobe checkout. So
And did you hear about the blind hack to the DRM?
no,
Yeah, well, if you have a reader on your computer, you can throw your ebook up and it'll read to you, right? Somebody's hacked that and now turns that voice into a PDF. So
Pretty.
your ebook is converted. You don't even hear the thing, but it's converted to a PDF. It's
the
not pretty, but it does read.
no, and digital rights that's another very controversial subject, and one that we talk about a lot in library world. DRM, it's very flawed any way you look at it. I mean, it's not bulletproof by any stretch of the imagination. You get to the point you're wondering, well, why exactly are you doing this? The music industry has shown that if you make your content available without any of these protections, it's basically to your benefit. It lets people experience your content on more devices, and the piracy issues, people who are going to pirate something are going to pirate it. They're going to figure out a way to break your DRM. The people who are not going to, who just want to read it, they're not going to send it to 20 of their friends. But the ebook publishers have not come around to that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Any other questions?
yep.
So do you guys feel like you understand better now why BookBub doesn't work at the library level?
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it's called. Yeah.
But I have an idea.
Okay.
on this
Run
side.
it by the guy who knows. It'll
Well,
work.
okay, so is it Simon and Schuster's? It says that libraries must offer a purchase option, which a lot of libraries would stick their nose up at that. I don't know what Mo feels about that. But what about the Friends of the Library? Could they take over as a business appendage, sort of the library? Could they take over that option? And if you want to purchase it, then you purchase it through the Friends, and the Friends get a kickback, and I don't know.
So that would depend on each distributor. I do know that Overdrive has recently introduced something. They call it, I can't remember what they call it. They call it it's sponsored purchases or something like that. It's not quite what you're talking about. It's
Within there.
Overdrive has listened to their customers, and they have lots of people saying, hey, I would love to be able to give you money directly to, or be able to purchase an ebook for you. Just go on the site and say, hey, I'd like to buy this and add it to the library's collection. Contractually, apparently, publishers won't allow that to happen, and we're stuck with it. But Overdrive has now introduced a program where you can identify a pot of money that you have that is associated with a particular sponsor or a particular stakeholder. And on those titles, it will appear courtesy of Friends of Oregon City Library. Now, we just checked into that. Unfortunately, it's not available yet at the Advantage level, at the individual library
Okay.
level. So if we were to do that, it would have to be something statewide. So somebody in Seaside logging in would still be able to download that title and see that it was available. That was provided
but
by
you have to get
Friends.
something like, well, wrong county, but courtesy of Nike, courtesy of Intel.
Or we just wait. Lots of these things float down to different levels over time.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things I do like about Overdrive. They sometimes do it a little more slowly than I would like, but they do seem to try to respond to libraries' needs.
Corporations get involved in
Things like
everything.
that.
I think the disadvantage with Overdrive is that it's just such a clunky technology system of getting it.
Yeah.
So the experience for an individual owner, it's just so seamless. And then they go to the library and they expect the same experience, just, free.
Yeah.
And it's just not that way.
Well,
It's not. They're trying. They've introduced their new web-based platform. I don't know if you had a chance to play around with it.
No.
Half of it is because they're trying to get around the Adobe 10-cent charge. They realize if they can put up a web-based version of the book that doesn't have to go through Adobe servers, they can save 10 cents each checkout. They're trying to get it more to the point where, yes, you download it once and it syncs across all your devices.
So the
Now,
book's in the cloud someplace, and you just read it somehow?
That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's basically you can download it to the book itself. You have to download to your individual devices.
Yeah.
It will save some of your information, like at the position, where you've read to. That they can save in the cloud. If you've put notes or highlights on there, they can save that in the cloud. But I don't believe the publishers are actually letting them store the actual ebook file in the cloud. Because if you have 4 devices and you have an Overdrive, they call it Overdrive Read, is their web-based format.
Oh, I saw that
If
on
you
there.
want to read that on 4 devices, you do have to go to each device and
Download it.
download it to get it loaded on there.
Hmm.
So, yes, it's a little clunkier. It is better than it used to be.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And we can hope that it will get better, but
Yeah, but when when you look at what it is that's actually going on, looking at they're set up this way in order to protect the rights of the product, B, make money at it as much as possible. The difference between what we get at BookBub, where you say, okay, I like this book, takes you to Amazon, click a button, and boom, it's on your device. That seamlessness, they don't have all these hoops that you have to jump through, as you eloquently put it. Because that's exactly what it is. It's a circus act to protect somebody's profit margin somewhere.
Sure, sure.
It's just, I just think it's very difficult for library users to always understand that, because a book is the same. You go in, get it. I mean, yes, you may have to put it on hold or something. It may not be on the shelf for you, but there's no guarantee at a bookstore that you're going to find the book you want either, So it's just so cumbersome when you may be a person who already has trouble with technology and you really just want it to be like the ebook showing up on your Kindle or whatever, So anyway, we'll get there. We'll keep working
Yes,
at
well,
it.
hopefully. And
Yeah.
again, and not to take up too much of your time, but the one of the other big issues, I think, of course, is that libraries just were not involved in this whole discussion from the beginning. And we kind of let the marketplace and the publishers and the technology
Right.
just kind of get away from us and basically set the agenda, as it were. And libraries just were not part of that conversation. I think we missed an opportunity to.
We did, because if we had acted early on and as a group, we would have had a little bit more influence anyway. We were being kind of reactive. So,
Okay.
anyway,
Any other questions? Or?
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you
Thank you.
so much, Greg.
Oh, you're very
Nice
welcome.
meeting you.
Hope to see you
Nice,
again.
nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Back again.
Our meeting was fun. We were here together wondering what was going on.
Good. Sorry. Thanks a lot, Greg. All right, so
Go.
now I'm up
to-
on this stuff
Yep.
here. To move on to the regular stuff. The director's report, you guys have seen this. Our door count, it looks pretty good, and our checkouts are up. They're improved. They're not great, but they have improved. So I felt good about that. The programs, the money, all that stuff is doing well. Our summer reading signups are doing well too. We're up. I think we're about 1,000 at this point with everybody, but that's better than we were at this time last year, and we still have like 7 weeks to go or something. So we're doing well on that, and so we just keep plugging along. And we have one of our longtime employees. Well, she was 5 years with us, Jenny Chamberlain. Her last day was yesterday, which was sad. She's going to the Dominican Republic. Her partner is going to teach, and she's going to be like a volunteer librarian, and she hopes to become very, very fluent in Spanish. So who knows? Maybe we'll snag her when she comes back. But and then of course the big event is it was actually July, but filming was the big event, July 2nd,
Right.
when the librarians came to town.
Did you get a bit roll?
No.
Oh, tell us.
But I did see John Larroquette.
Oh.
very cool.
Yeah. He's very tall. He has very nice hair. Yeah. So that was, most people responded really positively to that. And there was only one really grumpy person, but he was really grumpy. He made up for all the nice people did not quite they did make up for him, but you know what I mean. He was really grumpy. Like this library is here for taxpayers, rah, 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 and just kept going on and on and on, pointing fingers at me and all that stuff. But anyway, but most people were very, very gracious about it. They had about a week's notice. I would love to have given a little bit more, but I just thought, you know what, this is so cool to have the librarian film in the library. Let's just do it and pay for it later. And it was a little awkward because then 4th of July came later. So it was like off, on, off. But it all worked out really well, and we got a set of new blinds out of it. So the north wall up against 7th Street that did not have blinds at all now has beautiful blinds that are even nicer than the other ones, but they match very, very well. Custom made blinds.
Very cool.
And we did get a donation, rental, whatever you want to call it, right into a library account of $2,000, and then they did cover all staff salaries Yeah, I mean, well, I didn't actually ask them to cover mine because I was like, I just sat there and worked all day, you know. But so they covered staff salary, so everybody got a day off, and it wasn't out of their vacation or anything else.
Cool.
So,
Nice.
you know, I thought it went very, very well. They didn't damage a thing. They moved very little. They just basically moved the 2 counters in the front and rearranged the couch and the chairs. That's it, and that was their set. So,
And this comes out when?
so it's supposed to come out December 13th, and that's a Saturday.
Yeah,
And
well, this is not going to be a film type thing. This is a TV.
it's a
movie.
series.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly at this point in time, and I'll have to stay in touch with Eric Underwood and the films guys from Ex Libris, which is out of Clackamas. I don't know if that's the series start or if that's the specific episode. Do you know what I mean? But December 13th, mark it on your calendar. And I think we need to have a viewing party, but it's TNT, so I need to figure out how to set that up. So I was actually thinking about asking Carol Pauley if we could use that back room of hers where she's got all the TVs.
The movie theater, you can rent those and they can pipe stuff into the big screens there.
Oh, yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if we went to Carol's, we could drink.
Well, there's that.
But if you went to the movie theater, use it as a fundraiser for somebody.
Yeah, we'd have to be darn sure of the date.
Is there interest in them doing it again for another episode or something?
Nobody mentioned it.
See, I saw the first 2 films
Yeah.
with, let's see, Noah Wiley, I guess is
Noah
the
Wiley,
main,
yeah.
main character. At least he was the main character.
He still is. He still is,
Okay, and
apparently.
he got Bob Newhart as his mentor.
Yeah.
Which is just
and I
amazing.
so hope Bob is in this series, yeah.
He's still in the series according to IMDb.
Oh, great. Great, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rebecca Romaine is in this
Yeah,
one.
I mean, it's a great cast.
Yeah,
and
great
Dan
cast.
Larroquette, I didn't even realize he was in there.
Yeah, yeah. He's good. So he was the most major star that was in this section. But they, you know, the scene that they filmed, it probably will end up on film of being about 30 seconds long. It was crazy how much. They filmed out front of people walking back and forth for like hours. And all those people came into the library and cooled down because it was very warm that day, as you'll recall. And some of them, they were dressed in like costumes from like 1920 kind of vintage wear. And because there's like a time change thing going on here. People stuck in the past. And then other people were just in normal clothes, but they're very hot filming out there because it was the sun pouring down on the front. And then everything came inside, and then the air conditioning broke. But they were mostly done. And so we had to turn the air handler off because it was so noisy. So what they were going to do is flip it back on, you know, and I had, you know, set up this nice young man with the instructions of what you do and all that stuff, which was basically, finally, I had like a role in telling them what to do. And he flipped it back on and nothing happened. So then Denise Kai, who's our assistant parks director, she had to come down in her like workout clothes all like at 9 o'clock at night, and we were like calling Ann Crandall, who was on vacation, and there was like no air conditioning, and they wrapped up their work and ended up leaving, and I was like, great, see you later, bye. Oh my God, I have no air conditioning for tomorrow. It's supposed to be like 90 degrees. So it took us all the way, that was Thursday, it took us all the way till Monday to get it fixed. And we had an HVAC guy come in on Friday, and he could not figure out what was going on. So we ended up having to get the person who had mechanical and computer experience together to figure out. And it ended up being this tiny little switch. Yeah, it was
smallest things
hysterical.
cause
The
us the biggest
smallest
problems.
things, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all good, I hope. But I have Ann checking make sure the air conditioning's working like every morning. Yeah, because it's supposed to be like 95 this weekend, right?
Yep.
So anyway, that's going well. The statistics. You know, like I said, our circulation is down a little bit, but it is way better than it was last month. So everything else, I don't know does anybody have any questions about those basics?
No.
Okay, so the next thing I had on here was
Library standards.
yeah. So I had two things for you guys, and one was like just a summary of kind of what each section was and kind of just a tiny bit of the history going into this. And we spent so much time on this. We spent like almost 2 years reviewing this entire bulky document that are the standards. And, you know, I don't know if they're going to stay the way they are. They're not the most helpful in the world when it comes to like having some firmer numbers. Like the old standards had more like, you know, you should have this much space, you should have this size collection. That's really easy to talk about things when you have those kinds of things.
I remember you telling us that a long time
Yeah,
ago, that was
but
changing.
we really wanted to be more qualitative than quantitative, and we thought that that gave each community more latitude to have the library reflect their community and kind of the way that libraries are changing, and so collections may look different in the future. And so what may be a really robust collection of yesteryear, you know, maybe we just don't need that many books to browse. Maybe it's just taking up space that people would prefer to have seating areas. Or maybe we could be like we were on the hilltop and have these great numbers, but a horrible collection, you know? So it really, you do have to think about quality. So anyway, there's the same basic breakdown categories. These are exactly the same areas that we have always tried to measure our work in and have some expectations of standards. I think we might have added advocacy though, because we felt that was so important. So then the check sheet, the score sheet, this is actually, I was our guinea pig. Because, you know, go ahead. You have a question? Fred?
Well, there's several things that come up all the same, so I was just,
Yeah, that's not the
There,
check
you want the
sheet.
score sheet?
the score sheet.
Score sheet.
Yeah, score sheet's not on here.
Score sheet's the same as the executive summary.
Uh-oh. So I must have copied the same thing. So take a look. You can pass that around. Of course, now I don't. Oh, wait, I've got one more copy in
Oh,
here.
there we go.
Where'd you get that? I didn't get it.
I'm sorry, I must have attached the same document twice.
Yeah.
Standard score sheet.
Oh, okay, there it is. I see that. Never mind.
He just wasn't-
2 pages.
Never mind. We got
Never
it.
mind. We got it.
Oh, we're up.
Never
We're up and
mind.
running.
Just
So, you know, I'm on this committee, and we did basically the standards, but we wanted to do a score sheet so that you would be able to, each library director would be able to see on one page kind of how they line up on each little category instead of having to wade through all this text. So I thought, well, I need to do this because I need to know where I am, you know. And so I just threw this together, and so we'll see if this is, it may get a lot more refined because I'm in no way the expert in this group of how these things look, but it's a good starting point. So there's 3 categories: essential, enhanced, and exemplary. And if there is an NA, that means that we decided there were no standards in that category. So it just doesn't even exist. So, you can see that, and basically what we decided for now is that you just have to check off the majority of the boxes in one of the standards. So like under governance, there's a section that says services and leadership. There's only one section in services and leadership under essential, and maybe there's 10 check boxes under that. If I scored 6 out of 10, then I would say I achieved essential. If there in policies and procedures, there's essential, enhanced, and exemplary. Each of those areas have a list and check boxes to do, but there are different numbers of check boxes under each one.
But you have to have a certain majority of those check boxes
Yeah.
in order to
So
score.
yes, exactly. So in some areas, like in human resources, whatever I checked off, and this of course does not give us that detail, I felt like I checked off the majority under staff, human resources, both essential and enhanced. I didn't get up to exemplary, but I felt like I did the
So this is our score sheet.
This is our own score sheet.
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
this reflects Oregon City. So you can see that for the most part, we meet all the essential requirements, except when you get down to facilities. And design includes space. And then partnerships and collaboration. I'm going to have to go back to this one. Like, I wrote this, and I'm like, what do I mean by that? You know, it made sense at the time. Everybody else bought into it. What were we talking about? You know, I need to go look at my notes, because it was like, you will have partners in every new facility that you build is one of the things. And I'm like, what? What part? Who am I talking about? You know, it just didn't make sense to me the way it was written. So if it doesn't make sense to the person who wrote it, we need to write it better. So I need to go back and look at that. We have a meeting coming up like in early August, and these are the kinds of things that will map out our work for this year. We want this to be a constantly evolving document that gets updated every single year. And we want things like these checklists or the score sheet to exist so that it becomes really easy for people to use. It also, the good thing about this is it has an extensive list of resources at the end that give you some other standards to look at, to give you some resources to improve certain things, all that stuff. Because so we want to be like a helpful, you know, body of knowledge within this.
So this is designed so that the libraries in this group have a similar feel and function, as it were? Or?
Well, basically, I think all libraries want to meet the essential. You know, every library wants to be able to go through this and meet the essential. They're not going to be checking off all the same boxes,
right.
But if you have a majority of the boxes. Some people will just shoot for exemplary because that's who they are. Mm-hmm. Most of us are a little bit more realistic than that. It's kind of like, you know what, I just really want to meet essential. You know, and I think
right.
for Clackamas County,
yeah, we're dealing with this kind of a budget, with this kind of a readership,
yeah,
and
exactly.
blah, blah, blah. So,
exactly.
Enhanced in some areas is great.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Essential?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And then right now, like, there's absolutely no teeth to these things. These are not, funding is not based on this. There is nothing tied to this. So it's all extremely voluntary. It's kind of something as a means to discuss, you know, what a library could be, you know, what you could shoot for. That's what we want it to be, very like, you know, kind of an improvement document that you can work on in-house. But we do hope to tie it to something in the future at the state library. So even if you get like a star on your door or something, you can at least like start tying it into some meaning. So we're working with the state library. They've been pretty supportive. They don't have like a pot of money or anything, but we could figure out a recognition thing. And then also we're hoping that we do annual statistics that we report to the state library. And we're hoping that we can like tie this in so that people can at least report this stuff, and then we can start tracking it, or people can look at libraries their size elsewhere and see how they're doing in certain areas, and then maybe, you know, call those people and like, hey, you're my size, how are you achieving this, you know? Because you could see also all their other statistics there too, like their funding and everything else. So you can start really drilling down in some of those areas. So, you know, I thought this was not bad for a first stab.
No, looks good.
You know, considering that we are in such a tiny facility, I thought that our services measured up relatively well. Being attached to the city, of course, helped in like areas like HR and finance and stuff like that. And governance, you know, we have such a good, strong history of a library board and everything. We're really, you know, the thing that we need to work on, if we decide to, would be like training for the library board, and like more intentional training for the library board. You know, and maybe getting some of you guys to the conference every year and that kind of thing. That would be something we could work on. But otherwise, you know, I think we're kind of where we thought we would be. And, you know we're working on the building. We're also working on other things at this point in time because it's just a good time to do multiple things. If you're going to change one thing, why not change everything? You know, so we've already talked about BISAC. You know, we're looking at organizational structure. What else? We know we're looking into RFID. Some of those things will help us on this as well.
Well, it seems like if you don't have a self-evaluation, you don't know where you're going.
Exactly.
So, and
Exactly.
I think that this is very impressive.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to use it as a standard for your partner libraries is the only way to make it consistent for users too, so there's no surprises. And I think the bar is set pretty high. I'm impressed. I think it's great.
Thanks. Yeah, the bar is set pretty high, and we really wanted it to be out
Yeah.
there, kind of like, so especially those high achievers still had something to shoot for. You know, those Multnomah County libraries, the Deschutes, they always are doing stuff and just leading the way, and it does inspire the rest of us. It really does make us, you know. But I always let them bleed first, though. That's my. You try it. No, you try it. Okay.
Yeah, how's that
So
three-story
there's
maker room
that.
coming for you?
Okay, any more questions on that?
No.
Great.
For the building and bond update.
Yeah. So, so the building stuff is moving along. The whole CMGC thing is finished. We were able to get a contract signed with the general contractor by our July 1st deadline, and we are feeling pretty darn pleased with ourselves about that, because that was a lot of work to get done in a very condensed period of time. So what's going on now is the project manager, you know, the CMGC is kind of like this with the architect, so that they don't duplicate, but they mingle. And I think a first draft of the architect contract has gone to the architect to look at, but it still needs to like get looked at by our attorney and all kinds of stuff. And then when that's kind of going in the right direction, the project manager and I just need to figure out his scope of work. And that's just a simple personal services agreement. That's like the real simple format. But then those both will have to be brought to the city commission to be approved. So that's going forward. We've had 3 building committee meetings, I guess, and then we had a fabulous dinner out at DA's house, because he decided everybody should get to know each other since we're going to spend the next 2 years like in close contact. So that was great. That was really, thank you so much again for that. And but at the last building committee meeting, Mayor Neely came and we had the whole conversation about sustainability. And he is very much of the opinion that the building, pretty much like you guys, the building has to be as sustainable as possible. Whether it's LEED or not is not as important as the sustainability features.
So that statement was in line with his thinking?
Mhm.
Excellent.
It was, which kind of surprised us because I didn't think he thought that way, but he did, and that was great. So that worked out well. And then one of the next things that happens is a sustainability charrette, which is actually a requirement of LEED, but the architects believe that since we're not doing LEED, it's even more important to set really strong goals now and then hold ourselves accountable to those goals. And if we don't set them early, it's too easy to just say, oh, let's spend that money on something else. You know, you have to like make that dedicated commitment to those sustainable goals. So that's next Tuesday, and it's a 4-hour thing, and the building committee will be there in addition to all the architects and all those massive quantities of people, and we'll set some sustainability goals. That's the outcome for the day. Those will lead us through the next, couple of years. So, and then Linda and I went over to Tigard, which was great, 48,000 square feet, but pretty traditional library. So it's really fun to see all these different kinds of libraries. And I don't think I put the pictures up yet, though. I know I didn't. But she worked with our project manager, and just still raves about him to this day. So that's always good. And we're still working on the programming, which I'm going to Colorado tomorrow for my 40th high school reunion. And I will be flying into Denver. So since I was flying into Denver, I'm going to go to Dennis Humphrey's office and meet with those guys and have a go-to meeting about programming with our Portland people. So we'll see if we can move some of that forward. They're starting to get to the point where they're drawing things out just a little bit, like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And we're like, ooh, ick, oh yes, oh no, that won't work. But how much size goes to children, just in big kind of chunky blocks of things. So it's starting to come together. Yeah.
Excellent.
And then the next big event is next Wednesday, we'll have an open house. And that's 5 to 7. And I just ordered the cookies yesterday, so there will be cookies. And we're just gonna transform that little living room area, put some, rearrange just a little bit, put some easels up, and have the contractor, the architect, and the project manager available
Right.
to answer questions. And they would also like to bring back some results of the mind-breaking stuff for people. So,
Okay.
it kind of might be less organized than they envision it, but it will be a good opportunity for people to come in,
And I want to encourage everybody here to do that.
come
To be
by.
sure to meet everybody.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be really good. And then my other request that I sent you guys is, and then I wanted to tell you about the county meeting, about Gladstone. So this was the other agenda item that came up last minute. And so, Gladstone got shut down on its library proposal last year. And so since then, they've been trying to figure out another way to move forward, and they've had a citizen committee working on it, and the county commission asked them to come up with a plan to build a library. And so they came up with a financial plan that asked for a little bit more money from the county, no future contribution from Gladstone to the library, and spending part of their library distribution, their annual library distribution, on debt service, just like what we are doing. Well, so the county attorney, for some reason, was asked to look at that. And he said, well, I don't think that is in the spirit of the IGA to spend, or the intention of the IGA to spend that annual distribution on capital. In fact, that's not what the IGA said. And so, in fact, just like Oregon City plans on doing, so our name came up. Fortunately, we got CC'd on all this, which was great. And I was like, what? That's not how I understand it, And so we had a quick confab with our city attorney, and there was a work study session on the Gladstone proposal on Tuesday morning. And he and I went up there, and at a work session, you're not allowed to talk. You just have to listen to them go through the conversation. And the upshot was that it was created that way because of the existing Estacada Library District that had to go away for the current library district to exist. So you guys might not all know, but when this all came about many years ago, Estacada had created its own library district in order to build the Estacada Library. Well, that got absorbed into this whole process, and the county's been paying it off, but they didn't get their capital improvement. They've been getting it this way. So that was the only way the new library district could be created, because you can't overlap geographic areas, right? So because of that, that created a legal thing that said that that was that capital, and whatever else, had to be operations or whatever. Whatever their intention was, or whatever legal thing, that was not how it was sold, and that actually not all the language in the IGA even says that. I mean, there's lots of language that says services that you could really broadly define as facilities very easily, and you saw with the library standards, facilities are included, and those are referenced in exactly that same place, So it's not clear at all. It is to the county attorney, but it's not clear to anybody else. But the good news is, it doesn't matter, because the county commission basically said at this work session, we think the cities should spend the money however they best see fit, and that can improve capital improvement. Although we'd really like it if they're going to do it to clean up the language in the IGA so that, that's doesn't make us feel like they're doing something against the IGA. So whenever the Estacada Library District formally goes away, which is a year and a half, it will be the last payment. It couldn't get prepaid or whatever. Then the LDAC, the Library District Advisory Committee, will come together and put out something that all the cities then hopefully will say, okay, fine. And in the meantime, we'll just all proceed the way we've been planning on proceeding. And nobody has really a problem with it at all. And our city attorney and I sat down with the county attorney, and he's like, as far as I'm concerned, that's the end of that until we come up with the next amendment down the road. So nothing really to worry about as far as I know. The risk there is very, very low. And I think we'd have a case to stand on anyway, even if it did become an issue. But LDAC, Library District Advisory Committee, is meeting like tomorrow night, and I can't be there. And this topic and some other topics are coming up. And can anybody go?
I'm gonna play.
I know you are.
What time is it tomorrow night?
7 in Wilsonville.
Oh, yeah, your memo was on, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't bring my calendar out.
So,
I will try to go, but I am not certain I'm not gonna be in Wilsonville tomorrow.
okay, too bad. I was hoping you'd be working down there.
And I'm not tomorrow.
Yeah.
so
Oh, well. Well, if you could go, that would be
but
great.
I may still be able to go down there.
Yeah. It's at the library.
Yes.
And, that board is this interesting mix of some library directors and some citizens. I kind of would like it to be like all citizens with their library director sitting by their side as staff. I think it would make for a better quality product, honestly, because library directors are pretty much out there in the open when they're basically telling city managers how to run their libraries at other places. City managers kind of don't like that stuff. But anyway,
Probably.
that's another question.
Yeah.
So if you can make it, great. If not, I'm pretty confident that they won't be doing anything crazy that would rock our boat in any way. But could you go? Oh, that would be great.
That'd be better for you.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Okay, let's catch up on that a little bit. All right, super. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
I think, Linda, you'll have more understanding of their acronyms and language than I would.
I was around about that.
Yeah,
stuff.
you
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be really good. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Because that was some of the questions I had all along was,
Yeah.
I thought this was just for our faithful folks.
Well, let me. The ballot language is not clear at all.
Worked on that.
Yeah. Bill Kabizman pulled up some stuff I can share with you. But anyway, I really don't think it's a problem. But
Okay. Any communications?
communication.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, I can't tell you anything about the Friends, really, because I missed last month, just like I missed this meeting last month. You know, my husband retired, so we're doing that kind of stuff. And they didn't have a meeting today, though I can tell you that the Friends of the Library are looking at their rental of looking at their lease, and then also their relationship with TRAG and how much they're going to lease. So they're all up in the air. That's where they're at in their life right now. But for the foundation, I can tell you that we had a really big meeting June 23rd, and you were all invited, and a couple of you came. And there was about 31 people in the room that night, including all of the foundation's board members. And it turned out to be a very good meeting. We had a really good interaction with people. It was very lively. It was interesting. It was very fast. And so we had another debriefing meeting last Monday, the 30th. And then we're taking the summer off as a board. We need a little break, also to get ready to keep moving. But some of the small groups will be meeting, and we'll be talking email and stuff. So we're going to be ready to start moving forward in September, and we're going to start planning events and fundraisers and all that kind of stuff. So we also, you may be interested in the foundation. It's a tiny little bit of money now. Between getting money from the PAC, almost $600, a couple, $1 or so under $600 from the PAC, which was their excess funds. A year ago, we'd gotten money from Ross, and then a number of the board members are giving very hefty amounts of money, and so we probably have close to $8,000 in our budget right now. So costs to raise money, and we're covering those costs. We have a budget. Anything else I should tell them about?
Good.
So we're moving ahead. So,
Good.
and I hope that you guys that did come, that you enjoyed the
Oh, yeah.
the evening, and we're looking at that. And so everybody seemed real positive in the room that night.
And then Mo translated the results
Yes.
of that and
Yeah.
forwarded it on to the architects and so forth, so they got the advantage.
We did, yeah,
of
I
that
did.
information
Yeah,
as well.
mhm. It was
So-
I
good.
haven't looked at it, and I've been really busy, let me tell you.
But it's in the right hands. So the information
Well,
got passed on.
there was a double, for the architect, but also
Right,
for us.
right, but
That's
yeah,
right.
didn't want to waste that information, though.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Thank you, Linda. Are there any other future agenda items? Okay.
I missed getting in on right at the beginning. I guess it's under public comment. But I wanted to tell you that I got really interested in this Book Espresso machine concept, and I got the information from
Overdrive?
Well,
I mean, not Overdrive, but Books on Demand,
yeah.
on-demand books.
Yeah, those guys sent a nominal amount of information, and their sales prices, which are around 100,000.
Yeah.
In general for this machine. But Powell's has one, so I went down. I've been to Powell's twice now because the first time I was down there, I didn't talk to exactly the right guy, but they have a guy who essentially is full-time making that machine run. Plus, it turns out they have an expensive maintenance contract with Xerox. Plus, the only way the guy feels that they can actually keep this thing running is they have 2 in-house people, tech people, trained to take apart and put together reproduction machines. They're Powell staff people. So you've got a commitment from them every week to be maintaining the machinery. The glue and the trimmings and all the stuff that happens inside this very interesting machine. And let me tell you, it's a beautiful machine. You should go down and see it sometime. It's got plexiglass
How big?
covers. About the size of that
Okay.
podium right
Yeah.
there. And then you got another guy on a desk in front of it. And pretty much it's not a public operable piece of equipment. It's got so many software and hardware issues that it takes a fully trained person at Powell's plus 2 part-time people to keep the coverage on producing this thing. And so Seattle has had 2, one at the university bookstore and one at a private bookstore, and the one at the private bookstore is going away because the 2 in the size of Seattle is too much.
Wow.
They do, there's it's great for getting stuff that's in the domain of Gutenberg or whatever not Gmail, but Google, whatever Google is picking up, but what there, and he was showing me there was a printing of Walt Whitman's essays and poems in the 1859 version. The 1881 version are the ones that are published all the time. Well, they've got the 1860 version, that you can produce one of, and they sell a few for some reason, and then they're into self-published books. People don't want to. They want to run one copy, one off, or maybe 2. And so there are people who come down there and they've already got their book set up for this, and they run 1 or 2 copies and go away. Instead of using the internet, where the internet wants you to buy 50 or 100. And then, of course, you get a discount. But the cost of the average cost of a 200-page book is about $15. So
All that for $15.
yeah, but you're making a huge investment of both capital and maintenance. The maintenance, and the guy says we're not breaking even.
I wouldn't think
Yeah.
so.
Doesn't sound like it.
And they're not. And all the time I've been there, nobody's used it. So so he's not seeing a lot of use. But his comment was, he said, I probably would be really busy if I was down at Portland State in the library there.
Yeah, from what I remember reading, there was a lot of academic libraries that were using them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it,
So I was just totally intrigued by the possibilities, and I just couldn't get it out of my system until I ran it to ground.
Is it
with
out of
those
your
guys.
system now?
It's out of my system.
Glad to hear that.
great, yeah. I'm glad you looked, because I hadn't had a chance to get down
Nope.
there, and I was,
Well, it was really cool that there was one in town.
Yeah, it
You
is.
know, to
it was in
find
the
out
paper and
firsthand.
everything. It was
That's cool.
interesting.
Yeah. So I just,
Gutenberg
I
reinvented.
think these are the things, though, that we do want to keep
Looking at it,
pursuing.
you
If
never
we
know.
hear about an idea, we
Yeah.
really should be
Yeah.
Well,
pursuing.
on that vein, Link has started a new committee with representatives from each library called the Innovation Committee.
Oh, good.
And it's basically to keep an eye on things like this, probably not to this level of expense, but just things that we could be doing that,
Oh, as a
are out
group
there.
and,
And a group
share the
thinking about
cost.
it.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really helpful in the long run. So just so you know.
Okay.
Okay.
There's
Alrighty then.
no further business to come before this board. I adjourn the meeting at 6:21.
Well done.